Hello, welcome to Sarmaya Talks. I'm Jonathan Gil Harris. I'm an academic. I'm also the author of historical nonfiction through the lens of autobiography. During this lockdown, I'm working on a new book called Secrets from My Mother's Chinese Chest, The Jewish Silk Road from Europe to India. Jewish Silk Road, you might say? I didn't know there was one. And even though I'm Jewish, I hadn't known there was one either. More amazingly, my Jewish mother lived on the Silk Road from 1940 to 1946, and she had no clue that there ever was a Jewish Silk Road. But the truth of the matter is that for more than 2,000 years, from at least the 2nd century BCE to around 1850, the Silk Road was populated by many robust, dynamic Jewish communities, all of which took on board elements of the local culture. And at least in Central Asia and India, Jews and Muslims entered into dialogue in a way very much at odds with our modern understanding of Judeo-Christian tradition. We now think of Jews and Muslims as timeless adversaries, but the Silk Road encourages us to think differently. I was struck by this when walking in the footsteps of my mother last year, trying to trace the route that she took from Poland through Russia to Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. I passed through the city of Bukhara, and there I saw the synagogue. The synagogue was called the Synagoga Masjidi, the synagogue mosque. And a rumor has it that prior to its erection in 1620, Jews used to worship side by side with Muslims in Bukhara, in mosques. This Jewish-Muslim syncretism is a feature also of Indian culture. But India, in typical Masala fashion, takes it one step further. Not only did Judaism and Islam intermingle, Judaism, Islam, and Hinduism intermingled, as we'll see from the story of one remarkable Jew, whose story moves from Kashan in Persia via Sindh to Hyderabad and then Delhi. This Jew is named Sayyid Sarmad. He was born in 1590 in Kashan, a Silk Road hub in Persia. He was raised as a Jew, trained as a rabbi, but he converted to Islam. He worked as a trader, and perhaps Islam was useful for him in his trading deals. He passed through Tata in Sindh in about 1620, and while there he attended a mushaira because he'd become a devotee of Sufism. At the mushaira, he heard a ghazal sung by a young Hindu man named Abhay Chand. Sayyid Sarmad fell in love at first sight, or rather at first hearing, of Abhay. He went to Abhay's parents and said, "Please, give me your son." They said, "No, who are you?" So Sayyid Sarmad resorted to the unusual expedient of undressing and sitting 40 days and 40 nights completely naked at Abhay Chand's parents' doorstep to prove his love for their son. Amazingly, the strategy worked. And why? Because Sindh was a profoundly syncretic place in which different religious traditions were legible to all the inhabitants, no matter what their ostensible religion was. It was no surprise to Sarmad's lover's parents that a Jewish convert to Islam should prove the sincerity of his same-sex love for their son by donning the guise of a tantric ascetic. And this mixture of Judaism, Islam, and Hinduism became a feature of Sarmad's philosophy and his poetry. He was famous for his rubaiyat, poems that he wrote primarily in Hyderabad. There he also taught his lover Persian, but also Hebrew. Abhay Chand produced the first Persian translation of the Hebrew Bible, remarkable for a Hindu boy. And we know this because of a book of comparative religion published in Hyderabad in the mid-17th century called the Dabastan. in which a couplet attributed to Abhay Chand is quoted. In it, Abhay Chand says, "I study Judaism and Islam, but I'm neither Jew nor Muslim." This could have been Sayyid Sarmad's epithet as well. It's no surprise that Sayyid, with his profound knowledge of at least 3 religious traditions, was invited to Delhi to be Dara Shikoh's interlocutor during his famous discussions with representatives of numerous religious traditions. We think of Dara Shikoh as the heir of his great-grandfather, Akbar. Dara Shikoh represents the pluralism that never was because of his untimely murder at the hands of his brother, Aurangzeb. Although Aurangzeb wasn't quite the religious bigot that we often believe him to be, he certainly delivered a lethal death blow to the type of syncretism that Dara Shikoh represented. I see this less as the legacy of Akbar and more as the legacy of the Silk Road, the Jewish, Muslim, Hindu Silk Road in the case of India. The smallest trace of it survives in Sayyid Sarmad's Dargah in Delhi, near the Meena Bazaar by the Jama Masjid. Its devotees to this day include Muslims, but also Hindus and Jews. The smallest whisper that speaks volumes about a time of syncretism, a time of religious dialogue and plurality, that is worth our remembering now in this age of nationalist, cultural and religious purity. Thank you very much, and thank you, Sarmaya Talks.